Once again, we're getting down into the guts of the Marauder, so to speak. We're not getting that deep, but I do want to replace that belt. Now, the belt was not replaced because we were bargaining between what size to go with, and this belt has served it very well. And I've been able to tune and do everything else I'd like to with it, but normally your belt should maybe turn maybe 45 degrees, but I can take the belt and I can damn near do a 180 with the thing. Just about. It is very loose. So, because this is the single bolt cover style, it's a little bit different. What I'm going to do is put the Gates green belt on, and I've got one of those over here. Well, I got two, one for this car, one for the other. This is a 11002 belt. I'm going to see if that works. I don't really know if it'll get on there, but we're going to give it our best shot. What's hilarious, if that belt doesn't work or it's slightly too short, I may go down another pulley size. Not a full size, it's just another marginal decrease in diameter, and then that should do it. So we're going to get down into it and see if we can get the belt to wrap onto this and get down to it. That's about all I've got for this portion. After the installation and some testing of the Gates Green belt, also known as an AC Delco belt nowadays, company change, I guess, the car has a lot less belt slip and works phenomenally in the boost. I was able to see 10 pounds of boost at about 6,300 RPM. We can actually see a little more boost past that, and we'll be making some changes to that before we get on the dynos. I like the way the car looks with it. The only issue is there is an occasional belt slip, but because it is a heavy duty Gates Green belt, there aren't a lot of issues concerning that slip, honestly. But it doesn't slip very much at all, not nearly the amount it was before. I'm going to see here, maybe I can get you a good view in there of the setup. Sometimes you can see that belt tensioner. Yeah, it's not super visible, but it's right in there. So it's not super easy to see. It is a stock OEM belt tensioner. Since it's a single bolt design, it doesn't get the same amount of proper belt wrap that those three bolt designs from, like, of course, the B head Cobras and GTs had. So, anywho, it's looking good so far on that front. We may need to do some of our changes to the fuel pump setup, and that's going to be very easy. I may end up taking the PPRV out of the tank or coming up with a different solution for that. And that's just to get the increased fuel flow that we need and to get the fuel a little bit more stable on the fuel pump side. Engine and tune side, everything looks phenomenal. We just want to cross the T's and dot the I's. So here's our next project that we've been working on, which is the suspension on the car. And I just completed that, so I'm going to show you a little bit of that as well, and you can see that here. Today on the Marauder is brake pads and end links. Of course, I go with OEM Motorcraft parts. That end link in here is definitely bad, making all types of racket. Everything else in the suspension looks good for the most part. Got my solid steel brake lines, got some Hawks 5.0 HPS 5.0 pads. We'll, of course, check the wheel bearings when we're in here. You want to check all these things. You want to make sure your suspension is tight. And we're getting a lot of that front end clunk when you go over bumps. Tired of hearing it. So it was time for an OEM Motorcraft part, Ford. I don't use Moog, don't use those brands. They aren't of quality anymore. Back when they may have been of better quality, it's Chinese cheap junk. So you want to make sure you have good parts for a car this heavy, especially one that's this fast in this weight, because this car is a lot faster than normal for the weight that it is. You want to make sure everything is good when you're working on this car. Got that Harbor Freight magnetic flashlight. I highly suggest these. I test these out in the oil field all the time and use it, so I've had them for years and they work great. That's a little side piece. Everything in here, of course, is just clean. We're going to go ahead and get those compressed back in. It's a good time to bleed your brakes and your brake fluid change if you want to do that. All in all, I do a few things when I'm in the car like this, and we'll move on to that next step and get everything buttoned back together. Some of the extra things I have to do to these cars coming to a close, we know working on the green beast always. Damn, that camera, the outside and the inside, it's pretty bright. Of course, I've got the engine set in there. We're going to be taking all the accessories out. Going to be removing everything that's sitting around in there and get basically all these old harnesses and old wires out of there. If you come in here, you can actually see there's a lot of places. I'm taking all the interior out, any of the old wiring, speaker system stuff, pulling the seats, pulling the floor, the interior, and basically we'll just be redoing everything on this car. I figured, hey, why not get started now? It's been long enough. We need to get some things straight with the vehicle anyway, and she is in overall good shape. We'll get her a body person, we'll get the paint redone on it, and we'll get everything looking good. I've just got some boxes sitting on the windshield area there, no risk. Of course, I've got jacks under. I'm going to get her up in the air on all four, and I'll start running the fuel lines to the back area. I'm going to see about a welder for one of the fuel tanks so I can get a baffle in the bottom of it instead of having to buy another tank. And we'll have that fuel tank ready. Then we'll get the fuel hat. And right now I'm actually looking between doing a return or returnless style system instead of the deadhead system. Technically it would still be deadhead. But by making that fuel system go all the way across the vehicle with one fuel line and having a digital controller in the back, I won't have to do a manual fuel system. I'll have a pressure sensor at the front on the fuel rail, and in the back we'll have the dual or triple pumps. Should be dual Walbro 525s at this point to start, with room for a third, and we'll have those set up where they're variable and the voltage controller for each one, and that'll actually cost the same as doing a regulator array and then making a demand style fuel system. I don't see any need in doing a return style fuel system, even for the peak of 1,000 horsepower that we plan to make out of this car. So other than that, I'm just getting things done. Of course, we've got the girls outside as well, the 98 Cobra, we got the Marauder. So everybody's in line to get something done, and I've got this space cleared out where I can do what I've got to do. I may see about making some changes on the ceiling in here for the garage door, and I don't know how easily that's going to work out. If I could get this garage set up higher to where I could get a lift in here and put one dead center, that would be nice. I don't see that happening, but we're going to look into some options, and I'm going to talk to some people. So either way, we're getting something done one way or another in here for the space. I have been starting to get a lot of these items around. If you need things, I've got some extra parts. I've got different parts around. Some parts I am selling, some parts I'm keeping for the obvious reasons. Other than that, getting down in here again to the engine area, there's a lot of accessories and things that are coming out because we're going with all 8 ribbed. So everything 8 ribbed is going to be on this engine, from AC compressor all the way to the power steering system. And the power steering system may be changed. I may do the Coyote swap style power steering system on there with the electric Volvo pump, or another brand from a Tesla or anything that I come up with that would support this setup a little bit better. So nonetheless, we got a lot of different things going on. As you can see in here, everything is clear and ready. And the engine, she's sitting there always looking good. She's been sitting around a while. That 10R80 will be on the way for that, and we'll probably take this car out of the garage to bring it into a shop and on a lift to get the 10R80 in there if I'm not able to do it in here in the garage. So that's actually a next step that I want to get done, and there's a lot involved in doing that. So it's a logistics game and getting settled in. Getting everything outside settled in, doing yard work and repairs. So we've got a lot of different things that are going on at once, So other than that, hey, all you got to do is slam that like button, subscribe, etc., and we'll be out here in these streets.